Good morning, everybody. My name's Debbie. Welcome to my channel. I hope everybody had a good evening. Today we are back with the Robert John Bardo trial. He unaligned Rebecca Schaeffer, an upcoming actress, in 1990. The trial was in 1991. I believe the murder happened in 1989, I think. And this guy is weird. Really weird. But most of his family was weird too, so. Hey, Marty, good morning. 1989, yeah. Hey, Judy. Hey, Jennifer. So glad to see you guys this morning. I learned something new about my friend Jennifer. She grows garlic. I love garlic. I put garlic powder in just about everything I cook. I love garlic. I even put garlic in green beans. And my stepdaughter, if I'm cooking dinner and she sees me cooking green beans, she goes, "Oh, are those your garlic green beans?" I don't call them my garlic beans. I just put garlic in my green beans. She loves them like that. Are those your garlic green beans? Yes, Kristen, they are my garlic green beans. I love garlic in my green beans. I'm weird, I know, but my stepdaughter that is this extremely picky eater, she calls them my garlic green beans. Okay, so we were in the not the middle, because God knows this man never shuts up. Dr. Park Dietz, who is an expert witness for the defense, and he is telling us why this dude is crazy. And I think we're finally going to get to see the interview, the videotape of the interview that he did with this guy. And we had to stop in the middle of his interview. Well, no, he hadn't got to the interview yet. He's still talking. Talk. Well, we're going to see the interview. I think, maybe. They keep saying the interview's coming up. It just hasn't come up yet. He's still yapping.
With what I knew about Mr. Bardo, and I think under any of the ways that schizophrenia is diagnosed, he meets the criteria. Though I have some reservations still as to perhaps I'm wrong about some of my inferences and that this could be schizotypal personality disorder. On balance, the evidence persuades me that this is schizophrenia. Now, he has some associated symptoms. He has, among other things, the features that I alluded to yesterday as classic features of schizophrenia, though they're no longer the criteria, namely the autistic thinking and ambivalence and loose associations and flat affect. The flat affect is observable when he smiles inappropriately because of something that reminds him of some pleasant thing, even though he may be talking about something ghastly or sad. Times when he will look perplexed and confused when talking about something that would appear to be innocuous or without much emotional content. Times that he ought to appear even sadder than he does. What one can observe about his emotions is not what one would expect someone to be feeling with respect to whatever is being discussed at the time. So his affect, the visible portrayal of emotions, is sometimes inappropriate and sometimes flat. though at other times you can see him light up or become sad in response to something that obviously causes that. With respect to his ambivalence, I think that is one of the central features of his condition. And that if one had to understand Robert Bardo with a single psychiatric concept, that would be the one, that he has such powerful emotions and feelings that are so conflicted, it becomes very difficult for him to choose, to know in what direction to go. Is capable of marked and rapid fluctuation in his emotional state from one extreme to the other. And it's not always discernible what it is that's triggering those changes. I think that's evidenced dramatically in his writings from 1984, and that has continued to be the case, that he can rapidly swing into another very powerful and overly extreme mood. I think also that the social isolation that has characterized his life has made it such that he has had very few sources of reasonable guidance as to reality. He found himself humored by many that he came in contact with. His sister Arlene was quoted in a police report as saying that Robert was always a fantasizer, a daydreamer. We all knew that he couldn't sing or play the guitar, but that's what he liked to do. And it's true, they knew that he couldn't sing or play the guitar, that he didn't have talent, and yet people would humor him that someday he'd be a famous musician. Likewise, people that he worked with at Jack in the Box were quoted as talking to him about his poetry and his interest in music, and they had some views of him that didn't really accord with how his life was. I think he's been humored and not been given much reality testing by others. When someone who is mentally ill has others around them who can tell them when they're having a delusion, when their mood is getting excessive, who can try to put some limits on them, at least they can learn which parts of their lives are sick, which things are distorted. But he has not had anyone to set those limits or to tell him it was unrealistic. He had people encouraging him in his pursuit of Rebecca Schaeffer.
So, if a person with a mental illness plays music and sings, are you supposed to tell them, oh, you're awful, you can't play, you can't sing? I disagree with that. Yeah, maybe don't tell them that you're going to be a star one day, but that's mean. I don't know.
Let's go.
Bye. Now, telling him that, yeah, go ask Rebecca Schaeffer out, that's completely different. But to tell a mentally handicapped person that their playing and singing is bad, that's just rude. I'm sorry. I disagree. Be nice to mentally handicapped people.
His mother thought that Rebecca Schaeffer was his friend and liked him. This is not a message that is going to be useful to someone who has such inappropriate feelings as he did, because it doesn't correct the obvious distortion of reality. And had he not been so socially isolated, it wouldn't have been possible for him to be surrounded only by those who interacted so pathologically with him. My bottom line diagnosis then is that Robert Bardo suffers from a chronic schizophrenic illness and has probably deteriorated since age 13. and that the only other possibility that could account in large measure for what is certainly established about him would be that he has a schizotypal personality disorder, and that in either case,
little white lies. Teeny, like, okay, if your significant other says, does this dress make me look fat? Do you say yes? Those kind of lies.
there's no doubt that he's been remarkably isolated, has many peculiar ideas, perhaps delusional, and that he has extremes of emotions that fluctuate quite rapidly.
I wonder, Doctor, if you could share with us your opinion as to the psychiatric significance of what was observed here the other day. If you recall, we played some music. We played a song called Exit from the U2 Joshua Tree album. That period of time, I think you could observe, and I observed, some animation on the part of Mr. Robert Bardo's conduct. There appeared to be some strong facial features and distortions that were occurring. Could you explain that, or give us your opinion on that?
Yes, well, I think that what occurred was an example of autism in which Mr. Bardo became oblivious to the fact that he was among others, and not just among others, that he was sitting in a courtroom filled with people, with the judge at his own murder trial facing him and a camera in the courtroom televised to millions. And oblivious to all that, went into something of an autistic frenzy with respect to this music that he had listened to so many times and that had such important personal significance to him.
I would like to direct your attention and ask you, based on all the materials that you've reviewed and your examination of Robert Bardo, and I understand the limitations in that you have not had an opportunity to share with us the significance of what we're about to see on the video, but could you tell us, in your opinion, what was Robert Bardo's mental state as he left Rebecca Schaeffer's apartment on the first instant, which I believe was July 18th, 1989, at approximately 9 o'clock or so in the morning?
In my opinion, at the time that he left Rebecca Schaeffer's apartment, the first time he visited that morning, he was on cloud nine, that he'd never been happier in his life, and that he saw it as a joyous occasion, thinking he'd actually met her, this woman that he'd longed for and adored and cared for so much, who'd become his life, that he'd sold everything to come meet. He'd actually met her in person. He was excited by that. He wanted to share the good news. And at the same time that he felt wonderful about that, I believe he felt relief that he hadn't found it necessary to shoot his way in by shooting security guards to get to see her, because there weren't any security guards. And he had expected that might have been necessary. I think he walked away as happy as he had ever been, and that it was a momentous event for him to have the chance to meet her and actually shake her hand and speak with her directly.
In your opinion, when he left Rebecca Schaeffer's apartment on the first occasion, was his mental state as such that he had any feelings of hatred or ill will towards Rebecca Schaeffer?
Well, of course, he had those feelings many times in the past, extreme feelings, both positive ones and negative ones toward her. And he was, of course, capable of re-experiencing all of those. Moreover, he'd rehearsed mentally, repeatedly, various ways of responding to her. And among the things he'd rehearsed mentally was how he'd respond if she were arrogant, which is the way he speaks of a cluster of things, meaning haughtiness and unpleasantness and being too sharp and some other characteristics that would give him offense. He describes them as arrogant. He'd rehearsed that if she were arrogant, he could pull a gun and could point it at her and could say hostile things to her, like a line out of a movie, and shoot her. And that's a fantasy he told me he'd often had. But when he walked away that day, I believe he was very happy that it hadn't turned out that way, that hadn't been necessary, that she hadn't been arrogant, that that fantasy, that rehearsal hadn't been called into play.
And so your opinion would be that as far as his mental state at the time he left Rebecca Schaeffer's apartment on that first instance, he did not have any feelings of hatred or ill will towards her.
I think that they had vanished from his consciousness because they'd been displaced with the joy of meeting her.
Doctor, in your opinion, would you please tell us what Robert Bardo's mental state was for that period of time of an hour delay between 9 o'clock, approximately 9 o'clock, having left Rebecca Schaeffer's apartment on the first instance and returning approximately 1 hour later? Could you tell us what, in your opinion, was Robert Bardo's mental state during that 1 hour period of time?
I believe that principally he felt joy and excitement, but that he had a mixture of thoughts that included the various things that I mentioned in my testimony yesterday that he considered about whether he should return to see her or not, having sold his possessions, having traveled this distance, having forgotten to ask her whether she received the letters, having forgotten to ask her the questions that were in the letter he carried with him that day, or in the alternative to give her the letter, having forgotten to give her the U2 tape. There were things he wanted to do, but in the excitement of the moment had forgotten, and that he felt badly that he'd failed to do those things when, after all, that was one of the possibilities of what to do. And those were the things he then wanted to do. And yet he was concerned about going back because she might think ill of him or he might bother her. Still, he was this close and it meant so much to him, and what else did she have to do? And so I think there was a conflict for him of whether to go back or not. And he describes having thought through that conflict.
Doctor, in your opinion, then, when Robert Bardo returned to the apartment of Rebecca Schaeffer on that second occasion, do you have an opinion on what beliefs or premises he was focusing on at the time?
Well, I think what he was focusing on, that is what was in his consciousness, was to go back to see her again, spend more time with her, deliver the U2 CD, give her the letter he'd written to her, see her some more, talk to her some more, get another dose of the same thing he'd received an hour earlier when he'd left so elated. I think that's what was on his mind. However, he was also operating under a number of premises that were assumptions for him. To him, the world was rather different from what, in fact, most of us would believe it to be. And so while going back, he operated under the premise that if he romanced her and courted her properly, she might find him cute and witty, and they could date. And he had fantasized walking on the beach hand in hand with her and becoming very special friends. Or if not that, perhaps she'd write to him and be a pen pal and would know who he was. Or if not that, perhaps she would be mean to him and be arrogant, and then he'd have to kill her. Or if not that, perhaps she was going to be a screen whore, and so it was God's wish that he had to kill her because she shouldn't be a screen whore. These are not normal ideas or expectations. he had this set of beliefs and others equally peculiar that were all among his thoughts of how the world was when he went back. But I don't think they were all equally in his focus at the time.
Now, then, in your opinion, Doctor, when he, Robert Bardo, approached Rebecca Schaeffer's door on the second incident, was his mental state as such that you would conclude that his purpose was to surprise Rebecca Schaeffer or somehow planned some sort of an attack to take her by surprise somehow?
I don't think so. I think he went to have a romantic visit and deliver these special things.
What were his expectations as he approached the door the second time of Rebecca Schaeffer's apartment?
That now would happen what had happened last time. Only this time he'd give her the letter and be able to ask her the questions. And she'd be dressed the same way, and she had all morning, and what else could she have to do? And that now he'd be able to ask the questions he meant to ask and give her the tape that had, or rather the CD that had meant so much to him, so she could listen to the very one he listened to, and give her the letter that asked all the questions, or ask her the questions himself, and romance her some more.
In your opinion, did that mental state continue as after he approached the door and after he rang the doorbell of Rebecca Schaeffer's intercom?
No, it didn't.
Would you please explain?
There came a time when his mental state changed. When he saw her on the stairs coming down toward him, he thought he could recognize.
When it gets below 32 degrees, we have to leave the water running or our pipes will freeze and burst. I absolutely know what 32 degrees is, Marty.
An expression on her face and a change in her demeanor that caused him to be nervous, that she was perhaps irritated that he had returned. He saw that she looked as though she'd come out of a shower, and he became worried that girls don't like to be interrupted in the shower, and so she won't like that I've brought her out of the shower by ringing the doorbell. And as she opened the door, I believe he increasingly suspected that she would be mean to him or arrogant, to use his usual word, and that there came a time when he interpreted her appearance and demeanor as annoyance or being bothered by him or being too busy for him, and that when that occurred, he became extremely hostile and enacted exactly what he'd fantasized many times before, of pushing the weapon toward her and firing, and did just so.
If I understand your testimony correctly, then, that shift of mental state occurred during the period of time that he first started to observe Rebecca Schaeffer walking towards the front door to respond to his, presumably to respond to his ringing the doorbell, correct?
I believe it occurred in response to what he took to be her annoyance at him, and that he eventually was persuaded she was very annoyed, but initially suspected it based on how she shook the water or something from her hands, her hand movements as she came down the stairs.
Your Honor, I would like to get into some portion of the tape. Why don't you feel Dr. to go through this document and we can just play it this time, I think we might have switched something.
No, I know what that was. You recorded that when you were duping it.
Let's see.
Where's the volume?
Oh.
Yeah, mine too. We have a well. That's why we have to leave it running. If we were on city water, we wouldn't have to worry about it. We have a well. And when the ground freezes, so does the pipes. Trying. I just went outside and took a picture. 3 pictures, actually. That did not work. Well, I guess never mind. I'll show you later. What it's doing.
Got a court order for me to be able to videotape things that was part of the examination. I want to say to the record that I had tried to bring the video equipment in yesterday because I think it's important to try to video everything and not selected parts. But the jail wouldn't permit me to bring it in yesterday, and the court order wasn't here in time for it. As I told you yesterday, I'm Dr. Dees, and your attorney has had the court appoint me to evaluate you, and I will continue to share with him what my findings are. In fact, I spoke to him last evening and this morning. And if he chooses to, he will call me to testify. And again, as I mentioned yesterday, if I'm called to testify, then anything I know can be brought out in court. I understand. You arrived today with some clippings. Let's start with that.
This is from the Orange Times, obviously, I just saw you looking. It's kind of a repeat, because I had the 2 newspapers on. It's basically the same thing, it's just something I read. And it's just the same. Yeah, just because they're scared because I have it with me.
And the reason you're getting released is
Just get them out of line. So I don't think it's the best way to have it. And I figured that you would probably be a person.
I can, do you want it louder, Your Honor?
This might help.
Okay.
Explain what's happening at the moment. He's brought me newspaper clippings concerning Mr. and Mrs. Schaeffer that he had told me the day before he was reading over and over again, and he couldn't stop reading them, and they were upsetting him. So I told him to get rid of them if they were upsetting him, and he said he'd send them to me. And then when he learned I was coming back, he brought them to me instead.
It's just what they were going through, because I didn't realize it before I sent, it's like, really hard to sing with people before.
This is about how Rebecca's parents
Making sure how they thought about things, and I didn't, during my time in here, I constantly wanted to know who they were, because I didn't know who they were, because those are the people that hurt the most, and I was kind of devastated to read it, and then, it's just so.
Okay. Hang on. Before we get into that, That is frost in my yard. This is Florida winter. Yes, be jealous. That, it's melted there where the sun is. This is all frost, where it's in the shade. That's all frost. Yes, I'm working on getting a thing that will put the camera on top. That's why they don't want to go outside. That's why they don't want to go outside. Because of the ground's cold. Yes, I guess I'm going to have to buy them booties because they don't want to go out. Their little feetsies are going to get cold. So that's winter for me, is frost on the ground. Panhandle actually got snow last year, though. I hope we get snow this year.
More than just I imagined before. That's what that was about. Every time it's over tears, it's like instead of just holding it myself, constantly depressed myself while reading, feeling a sense of guilt about everything, and depression, so that's kind of over to you.
Okay, good. I'm going to try to keep you on track today with a couple subjects. And the first thing
2020 with these last time I went to the doctor. Why do I need new glasses?
I want you to talk to me about, even though you've talked to me about it most of the day yesterday, is to go step by step through.
I have progressives. I have bifocals. This has become the Debbie and Marty show. I have bifocals.
Your beginning interest in Rebecca Schaeffer, and to talk about how that interest changed over time and what eventually happened. If you could start at the very beginning of what was happening in your life at that time.
The first time I saw it was in the summer of 1986. I lived in Tucson, Arizona, watching TV. There's a commercial that suddenly came on, advertising the show called My Sister's Son, a show Karen Dollar and Rebecca Schaeffer back to back. And Rebecca's wife, she's full of energy, and she says something about wanting to be a rock star or something, from her character, Patty Russell. And then Cameron says something about her wanting to be a senator. She says, oh, that was last year. She's very anti-stalking on me. Just giving an introduction to the show. When I first saw her, that's the first time I saw her in 1986. And then I decided to watch the show later on. And in the Arizona Daily Star newspaper in Tucson, Arizona, there's a Sunday night on television, TV guy, and it's, I had Pandora and her Thomas and movie. She was in on TV playing some geisha girl or something. Anyways, inside, I looked in the picture for that interview and it showed her and this girl that I had seen on that commercial, and her name was Rebecca Schaeffer. And it described how she came to LA, with the help of Pandora. And they was talking about the new show, My Sister's Son. I started to watch it. I think that was in September, October 1986. after watching it 2 or 3 times, I had written to Rebecca Schaeffer, written a letter which I wrote, talking about the founders, and I wrote about I wrote lyrics to the Beatles song Help, and I wrote to her, talking about my hopes about the world, about world peace and everything, and I asked her to send me an autographed picture. And I believe at the end of October 1986, she sent me a postcard, picture postcard. She had written, Robert Dash, your letter was the nicest and most real letter I ever received, and should have been real. And then the one thing I disagree with is, and this is in quotations, Carrie Burton was the guy. She was talking about what I was talking about in a letter about world peace. She says, world peace can only happen if people fight within themselves. And she will please take care. Then she will heart symbol. And then she will Rebecca. Then on the picture side, she wrote Robert Dash, and she wrote a heart symbol and a peace symbol, and then Rebecca Schaeffer, blue marker. And then I kept that with me. And then since I was at the beginning of, at the end of 1986, I started working at Jackbox. That's when I first started employment at Jackbox. And I started saving up money, and I planned to visit Rebecca Schaeffer with money I saved up. About the summer of '87, I made preparations for doing that. And my goal was just to meet her, during that time, I had seen certain articles like in 17 magazine and TV Guide that I would collect. Any articles I could find in time, I would collect them. I kept trying to write her again, at Warner Brothers Studio, the Burbank Studios where the show was being filmed. And then, read those articles in 17 magazine and TV Guide, where she's on the cover with Karen Robert, telling my sister sent. And I read those when I was trying to look for Rebecca Schaeffer. And I came to Los Angeles in late May, early June, for about a week in 1987. That was my first time coming. I had got some, some clippings and articles I had with me, and I purchased a big stuffed animal teddy bear, with a blue ribbon, and when I came to Los Angeles, I went to. I arrived at the Burbank Airport, and I went to took a taxi to Hollywood, and I got a hotel called Hotel Hollywood, and that was where my base was during my stay in Los Angeles during the time. And I made several attempts. I went to a florist, and I made arrangements to have some a dozen silver roses to be sent to her with that stuffed animal, plus a letter. And I also was trying to get that into the studio before she was filming it all. And I was told by the force of trying to make that delivery that the security people had intercepted that. And so I went to the Robert Studios, and I met with the chief of security there, Jack Ager, something like that. And we had talked to him and showed me the stuff that he said he couldn't give to Rebecca Schaeffer. And the way he made her sound, he said that she didn't want to be bothered, that she's busy, she had no time. I was kind of very upset about that, He told me something else, some guy trying to meet Karen Robert doing the same thing that I just, I really didn't understand about this. And he just kept telling me, I can't give that to her. You should take those flowers and teddy bear, with you. And he instructed his security officers to give me a tour of the main Burbank Studios area, And I later learned that about the Burbank Studios rent from my sister's house, built from one of the security there. After I was done with the tour, Jack Hager gave his car. He took me the stuff and took me back to Hollywood to my hotel. Dropped me off from Hollywood inside. when I went inside the hotel, back into my room, and I was very depressed. I was kind of, I was, devastated. I understand why I couldn't see her. She seemed so successful in her interviews. I really liked her. She's a very pretty girl. Very, something. There's something unique about her. I just go for her. And I was inside that room, and I felt feeling very depressed. So I left that hotel, and I was going along Hollywood Boulevard, on jokes wasn't anything I could find, and try to get some sleeping pills. And I purchased some, purchased as much as I could afford the money that I had. I went back to the hotel room, and I take them all at once. And I took this tape and I went to sleep, and I thought I'd fall asleep and I'd be it, because I really had a deep admiration for Rebecca Schaeffer. And since I couldn't succeed in seeing her, I just, I tried to end my life there. Hey, you guys here at Real? When I was woken up from my I was very, irritable, and I just, I was very angry at Rebecca Schaeffer. I thought she was arrogant. Since she wants me that she had a star, she was very aloof, I seem to remember that I taken a trip to Rebecca Schaeffer's ranch, and I got there, and I was turning one street right there to another street right later. He's a old man, where he's telling me to get out here. We've been told that you should not be here. Told me he's very mean to me. And after when I left there, I was very, very angry and upset. I tried to let anger out like a Schaeffer. That's when I think it was the first time I seriously thought that I could cause harm to her. And then I seem to recall some time during that time where I was making some trips around the Hollywood Hills, looking for a sense of description of, what it described in the articles that she lived in the Hollywood Hills, and she had a Volkswagen convertible. I was hoping with some luck that I could find her, but I didn't succeed at all. And I went to Hollywood Boulevard, and I purchased some books. One of the books was The Beatles, The Love You Make. And remember during Courtroom being on Hollywood Boulevard, where I found that he listed all the TV stars, and this was Rebecca Schaeffer. It said had a birthday, and it said November 6, 1967. It said she was born in Eugene, Oregon. So I remember that. I remember taking the RTD bus from Hollywood Boulevard to downtown. I was still kind of depressed to downtown LA. And I believe I went to downtown area. I think there's a little mall shopping area underneath the Arco building downtown LA. And I remember accidentally discovering a Catholic church in there. And went into there, I was kind of depressed about, very sad, kind of upset that I didn't get a chance to meet Rebecca Schaeffer. And it was something that was very important to me. And then, when I sat there, kind of praying, kind of sad and everything, and they're doing, they're doing the service, and the Catholic priest, and I guess they're doing the sacrament, which they put the bread and the blood of Jesus on that, and I took it, it's funny, kind of comforted in there, after the service, I talked to the Catholic priest, there was also the church owner talked to me. He told me that I had to become a Catholic to do the sacrament, and he said he was willing to do that. I really didn't have time, so I went to the religious center that was on the table, and I found the old prayer card, and I picked that up, and I took completely with you. It's something where if you try to start saying get whatever you want, you know, and taking them with me too hard with that, you know. And I remember going back to Hotel Howard, and I may have tried to make some more trips along the Hollywood Hills. I'm not really sure. I don't seem to recall that at this time. But so I in Los Angeles on a Saturday. I was leaving on Thursday. This June of '87. So I was making preparations to take a flight, Northwest Airlines flight back to Tucson, Arizona. And, you know, I made my way back to the Burbank Airport, went back to Tucson, Arizona, and on the flight back, I was thinking about how I should return back to LA to again attack the flight carrier. And with that, I carried a sense of animosity towards Rebecca Schaeffer. It was very deep, and when I arrived back home to Tucson, Arizona, and started my life back in at Jack in the Box, working as a maintenance worker. I couldn't forget about this Schaeffer. It's very important to me. It's important for me to keep watching your shows on TV. I keep on doing it. And that's when I started getting a VCR, started taking your shows. I guess I made arrangements to try to come to LA. It's late July 1987. And this time, I didn't have a hotel with me to base my operation to try to find her. And I just go there, and I heard that they were filming a show, I believe. I took to see her at Burbank Studios Ranch. And I drive this time by Trailways bus, and I rode to LA again. I believe I went to around. I was still on Hollywood Boulevard, and I kept walking, to Burbank Studios Ranch, to hopefully try to catch her on time where she would either be at rehearsals or catch her at the time when she would have to be filming the show. And during that time, I had with me, a bag, not a grocery bag, but a brown bag. I had my Walkmans and music tapes from YouTube, rock of YouTube. I remember passing some time, looking around Hollywood Hills again, but it's always east of Mulholland Drive, and I never,
At 10:30 on October 21st. Would Ms. Clark left?
She did.
I know she's seen the tape and doesn't need to watch it, but we do need to have her here for. Here. This Jen? Oh, this is good. All right. The 21st of October, 10:30. And I wish to tell both sides that I'm going to tolerate this interruption because of the fact that the case went longer than expected, almost as to each witness. However, when we start on the 21st, I intend to push the matter along, so you should have your witnesses ready. Any additional witnesses from either side should be ready to go and should not have any flaws in their schedule. They have now over a week to arrange their schedules. Okay? All right.
Roger, can I get an estimate from the defense, how much longer we will be on direct so that I can take that into account if I do need to call rebuttal witnesses?
Do you have any idea yet? This is at least another hour and a half tape, is it not?
3-4 hours, I would think.
3 or 4 hours. We should conclude then direct on Monday, the
That will
21st.
be playing tapes. Is that?
Well, I'm not going to ask him what he's going to be doing. That's up to him. At any rate, all right. So I take it, do you have any objection to my putting on the record what we discussed in chambers regarding witnesses or not?
Yeah. No, that's fine, Your Honor.
Okay, then this is going to be your last witness,
Yes,
except for possible surrebuttal.
that's correct.
All right, fine. So that is about as far as we can go, I think, in terms of schedule. All right.
What do you want, little whiny butt? Little whiny butt.
Your question might be
Sure, go ahead.
Your Honor, what I intend to do is continue playing on the tape. Yes. Dr. Deeds.
Go ahead. Does he has the remote then, or will have it?
She said something about wanting to be a lobster or something, you know, and then I said something about the one to be a senator, she saw that, she's very anti-stalking on the team, and she never did shit on them. When I first saw her, that's the first time I saw her in 1986. And then I decided I watched the show later on. And there was one day, so newspaper, just when I saw it, there's a Sunday here, like television, TV, and so I kind of heard her talk about some movies. She was on TV, investigation or something. Anyways, inside I looked in the picture that Andy showed her, and this girl that I had seen on camera, Rebecca Schaeffer. And it started out, she came to all that, with all kind of all around. And it was talking about the show, I started to watch it, I think that was in September, October 1986. After watching it 2 or 3 times, I had written to Rebecca Schaeffer. I read the letter, which I wrote, talking about the founders, and I wrote about there was to be a song help, and I wrote to talking about my host, what to do, and all of these song, everything, I asked her to send me out a picture, and later that year in October 1986, she sent me a postcard, picture postcard. She had written, Robert, your letter was the nicest, most real letter I ever received and showed my real. And then, the only thing I disagreed with is, in this quotations, Carrie Burton was the she was talking about that's all my letter, all of these, she says, well, he's the only hat that people find them themselves, she will please take care, that she will mark the word symbol, that she will Rebecca, then on the picture side, she wrote Robert, dash, and she wrote a heart symbol and a peace symbol, and Rebecca Schaeffer, blue marker. And then, I kept it with me. Since I was at the beginning of, at the end of 1986, I started working at Jackbox. That's when I first started employing at Jackbox. And I started saving up money and all, and I planned to visit Rebecca Schaeffer with money I saved up. About December of 87, made preparations for doing that. And my goal was just to meet her, during that time, I had seen certain articles like in 17, 19 TV Guide that I'd collect any articles that I could find during the time. I would collect them. And I kept trying to write her again. And Warner Brothers Studio, the Bergen Studios where the show was being filmed. And then I read those articles in 17 magazine. TV Guide, which is on the cover with Karen Robert. So my sister sent, and I read those, and I was trying to look for Rebecca Schaeffer. And I came to Los Angeles in late May, early June, and for about a week in 1987. That was my first time coming. I brought some, some clippings and articles I had with me, and I purchased a big, stuffed animal teddy bear, with a blue ribbon, and when I came to Los Angeles, I went to. I arrived at the Burbank Airport and went to took a taxi to Hollywood, and I got a hotel called Hotel Hollywood, and that was where my base was during my stay in Los Angeles during the time. And I made it so and I went to a florist, and I made arrangements to have some.
Hey, dude! Guys, this is my friend Jason. Thank you for becoming a member. That's cool. Hey, it's good to see you.
A dozen silk roses to be sent to her with that stuffed animal, plus a letter. And I also was trying to get that into the studio before she was filming it all. And I was told by the force that we tried to make that delivery that the security people hadn't intercepted yet. And so I went to the Robert Studios, and I met with the chief of security, Jack Hager, something like that. And we had talked, and he showed me the stuff that he said he couldn't give to Rebecca Schaeffer. And the way he made her sound, he said that she didn't want to be bothered, that she's busy, she had no time. I was kind of very upset about that. He told me something about some guy trying to meet a Karen Robert doing the same thing that I really didn't understand about this. And he just kept telling me, I can't give that to her. You should take those flowers and take her, with you. He instructed his security officers to give me 12 main Burbank Studios area, And I later learned that while the Burbank Studios transferred my sister's house was filmed from one of the security there. After I was going to the tour and all, Jack Hager his car. He took me the stuff, took me back to Hollywood to my hotel. Dropped me off from Hollywood, and he said, when I went inside the hotel, back into my room, and I was very depressed. I was kind of, I was devastated. Because I understand why I couldn't see her. She seems so successful in her interviews. I really liked her. She's a very pretty girl. Very, there's something unique about her. I just fell for her. And I was inside that room now, and I felt very depressed. So I left that hotel, and I was going along Hollywood Boulevard, on drugstores and everything I could find, and trying to get some sleeping pills. And I purchased some. Purchased as much as I could afford with the money that I had. And I went back to the hotel room, and I take them all at once. And I took this tape, and I went to sleep, and I thought I'd fall asleep and it'd be it, because I really had a deep admiration for her. And since I couldn't succeed in seeing her, I just, I tried to end my life there. Hey, you guys here? When I woken up from my I was very, irritable, and I just,
This does not sound like it's a very conducive atmosphere to interview someone that is, number one, incarcerated for unaliving someone, and number two, someone that's suspected of having a mental health disorder. All of that sound and distraction in the background, that's not a good way to be interviewing somebody. And even a normal person would be distracted by all the sounds and stuff. How is he even able to focus? He can't even focus in court. How is he focusing to talk to the doctor with all that noise going on?
It's very angry at Rebecca Schaeffer. I thought she was arrogant. And it's just, since she wants me that she had the star attitude, that she was very aloof, And, I seem to remember that I takes a trip to Rebecca Studios Ranch, and I got there and all, and I was coming down the street right there until another street right later. He's a poor mess. He's told me that, we've been told that you should not be here. He's very mean to me, And after when I left there, it was very, very angry and upset. And rather than anger at Rebecca Schaeffer, that's when I think it was the first time I seriously thought that I could cause harm to her. And that I think I seem to recall some time during that time, so I'm making some trips around the Hollywood Hills looking for a sense of description of, where, what I described in the articles that she did in the Hollywood Hills. She had a full-time convertible, and told me that with some luck that I could find her, but I didn't succeed. And I went to Hollywood Boulevard, and I purchased some books. One of the books was The Beatles, The Love You Make. And remember, during Courtroom on Hollywood Boulevard, where I found a book that listed all the TV stars and this is Rebecca Schaeffer. It said had a birthday, and it said November 6, 1967. It said she's born in Eugene, Oregon, So I remember that, And I remember taking the RTV bus from Hollywood Boulevard to downtown, and I still kind of pressed to downtown LA. And I believe I went to downtown area. I think there's a little mall, shopping area underneath the Arco building downtown LA. And I remember, accidentally discovering a Catholic church there, and went into there. I was kind of depressed and very sad, kind of upset that I didn't get a chance to meet her. It was something that was very important to me. And then, when I sat there, kind of praying, kind of sad and everything, and they're doing, they're doing a service with the Catholic priest, and I guess they're doing the sacrament, which with the bread and the blood of Jesus, and I took it, it's funny, kind of comforted in there, After the service, I talked to the Catholic priest, there's also, here the church, and I talked to him, and he told me that I had to be kind of Catholic to do the sacrament, and he said he's willing to do that with me, but I really didn't have time, so I went to the religious center that was on the table, and I found the old prayer card, and I picked that up, and I took it with me. It's something where you church is certain saying, do whatever you want, and I was taking that with me, and took hard with that, and I remember going back to the Hotel Howard, and I may have tried to make some more trips along the Hollywood Hills. I'm not really sure. I don't seem to recall that at this time. But I made this. I arrived in Los Angeles on Saturday, and I was leaving on Thursday. this, on June of '87. So I was making preparations to take a flight in Northwest Airlines flight back to Tucson, Arizona. And, I made my way back to the Burbank airport, went back to Tucson, Arizona, and on the flight back, I was thinking about I should return back to LA to begin the time to find her. And I looked at it and carried a sense of animosity towards Rebecca Schaeffer. It was very deep. And when I arrived back home to Tucson, Arizona, I started a life that I came at Jack in the Box, working as a maintenance worker.
Stop the tape here, Your Honor, to point out two things. First is that sometimes he refers to Rebecca Schaeffer in present tense. He's done that periodically. Secondly, to point to the way in which he describes his having felt as soon as he was on the plane home to Tucson that he ought to return to LA. That is, he no sooner left Los Angeles than he feels the desire to return, which is an example of this approach avoidance conflict that I mentioned in my earlier testimony. He both wants to approach her and fears approaching her. When he just now spoke about having returned, the words he used, as far as I could record them with repeated listenings, were, when I arrived back at home to Tucson, Arizona, I started my life back in at Jack in the Box. I think that particular sentence construction in which he resumes his life is significant in that it is a distinction he makes from the other fragment of his life in which he's pursuing Rebecca Schaeffer.
It's very important to me. It's probably important for me to keep watching your shows on TV. I keep on doing it. And that's when I started getting the VCR, started taping for shows. I guess I made arrangements to try to come to LA, I guess late July 1987. And this time I didn't have a hotel with me to base my operation to try to find her. I just go there. And I heard that they were filming a show, I believe. I took to see her and heard her speak those language. And I flew this time by Trailways bus. And I arrived to LA again. I immediately, I believe I went to around, and I still on Hollywood Boulevard. I kept walking, to Burbank Studios Ranch. So hopefully try to catch her on time where she'd either be in rehearsals or catch her at the time when she'd actually be filming the show. And during that time, I had with me, a bag, not a grocery bag, but a brown bag. I had my Walkmans and music tapes from YouTube, rock group YouTube, I remember passing some time, looking around Hollywood Hills again, but it's always east of Mulholland Drive, and I never tried to go west of that. I seem to recall that I had success. I gave to leading artists the tenure. I believe I had that at the beginning. I had a letter in the Union Station where they had trophies. Before I had taken some pictures of myself, and I had a little photo booth there, and I had that with me. I went to leading artists in Beverly Hills, and I gave that stuff to a lady named Cheryl. Since we called this lady, something like that, and I told her to get it. Those people there, I was really sweet that I did, take a look at this stuff. I was trying because it seemed like they would do it, And so after leaving there, I kept trying to go back to the Rebecca Studios eventually to see her.
I stopped the tape here because I think it was difficult to understand what he was just saying. And also because this was an instance where I think it illustrates how what Mr. Bardo says, when actually looked at in detail, is somewhat more fragmented than the impression one gets if one simply listens to him. If one just picks up some of the words, a more coherent theme seems to emerge than what he's actually saying. As best I can tell, what he actually said there was, I seem to recall that I had some stuff that I gave to leading artists. The teddy bear, I believe I had, and a letter in Union Station. They had trailways before I had taken some pictures of myself in a little photo booth there, and I had that with me. And I went to leading artists in Beverly Hills, and I gave that stuff to a lady named Cheryl, I seem to recall. There's a lady, something like that. And I told her to give it to her. You know, those people there thought it was real sweet, and I was happy. And so, you know, because it seemed like they would do it. And after leaving there, I kept trying to go back to the Burbank Studios ranch, hoping to see her and all.
I remember. I'm sorry.
May I ask that instead of having the witness interpret what the defendant is saying, that we simply replay the tape if it appears to be difficult to understand? I'd prefer to hear it from the defendant.
Well, we have heard from the defendant, and apparently these are notes that he took.
I was going to say, someone take the remote away from him. Because if he gets to talk and analyze every little thing he said, we're going to be here for days and days. Well, we're already going to be here for days and days. What part are we in? We're in part 6. There's like 15 parts in this dude's testimony.
Present during the conversation, there's some lack of fidelity in the audio here, and I think what he's doing is testifying as to what the defendant said as he heard it.
I also think it's, I'm sorry, I was going to indicate that I also think it's important that Dr. Dietz be allowed to explain part of the basis of his conclusions. And
That's not the point.
What he was doing, he was reading from a document that I presume he has prepared. Is that correct, sir?
Your Honor, to correct the record, what I'm reading from was not made contemporaneously. These
Say it was. What is it exactly?
This is my best effort at transcribing portions of this, sometimes listening to it a dozen times to try to make out the words from the tape.
A transcription is not evidence. A transcription isn't evidence. What the witness says is the evidence. What the tape says is the evidence. If it was a jury trial, the jury would be instructed that a transcript is not evidence. What you hear with your own ears from what is played on the tape is the evidence. Marcia's right. Marcia is correct.
Now, I have no transcription of this first tape.
Well, I don't think it's necessary since it's part of his testimony. He was present during the conversation, and we're playing it, and it's now part of the record.
There may be some dispute, Your Honor, concerning how this witness interprets some of the speech patterns and what the defendant says.
Undoubtedly, there will be some dispute, and you're welcome to dispute it. All right, let's proceed.
I called Robert, heard his speech to see if they could film the show. I told them in fact that they were going to film the show. And I tried to be there on time to film what she's going to show. I was trying to find if she's going to come into the studio and try to catch her on. And at that time, also I had with me a knife. This vacation knife, real sharp, but it's about this high, this thick. And I lost it in my pocket, I was just still having that, I was still upset with her. And I thought of harming her, and I really did, because I was very upset with her, thinking that she's there, but she meant so much to me, And I was growing more and more. I felt that it was part of my ego not letting her go. I had to fight her. And I felt like I couldn't lose to this, that I don't lose a period, That's something I got from an entrepreneur magazine called Robert, and one of the guys says, I don't lose a period. And I talked to that idea with Rebecca, I just can't find her. Well, anyways, I found out on the phone about the filming of my sister's website. They always skated around the Bardo Studios ranch area. And I was waiting up there and they started filming. I remember a red light going on. I guess it was South Stage 29. And I remember on top of the South Stage said the mail or something like that. I remember seeing the red light constantly going on. And I was told by the security there that they were indeed filming my sister's hand. And, I waited around hoping, to see her now, and I felt kind of bad, kind of left out, when all the people were going in with their tickets and all, and I was out there, and I really wanted to see it, and I wanted, it was very important to me. And then, waited around, I had some thoughts behind her if I did see her, but I wasn't, because, either, depends on if I did see her, I was hoping to see her Volkswagen convertible, I think it was around 4 hours, I waited there, walking around waiting there, and also bridge, I guess on Hollywood Way in Burbank. Also, there's 2 gas stations on before you go to the Burbank Studios Ranch on Hollywood Way. That I was constantly waiting there, I tried to see Rebecca, and when I finally came to time to leave the studio, I asked people if the show was done. They said yes, it was. And just as old person from me, it's a sudden thirst or something. I went to Carl's Jr. to get some Coca-Cola. For some reason, I couldn't explain. I just went over there. As I came back, I could have sworn that I saw the truck coming out. I guess it was a convertible Volkswagen. It looked like a cool Volkswagen convertible, and it looked like it was her name. She left and she zoomed out of there. I was kind of upset. And after that, I made questions to him. I was broken, I felt. But if I may, during my time, just to backtrack a little bit, before I went to the Burbank Studios on the 509 Friday doing the test, and I stayed there, I was in Hollywood, remember in Hollywood, I seem to recall it was on Thursday. That's the time where I got bronze, when I walked in and you two taking the binoculars. It's by Black Animal. It's around the Capitol Records building there. I was in the back area there. I had encountered those people. It's a very unpleasant experience for me. I remember some of it, but I explained it to you yesterday. But some of it's kind of hard for me to remember because it's something I didn't want to think about too much. But I do recall that I encountered, 2 black men on that day. That they didn't have me at the walk my Paul's binoculars a lot. I was walking in the area because I always seem to always feel on Hollywood Boulevard area. Because that's the area I was most familiar with, from the last show. And during that, I was walking during the time that's like Chondo's man, it was during the time we were selling crack and all this drugs and all. And they're black men trying to get on me to get some drugs out of home, and I had a bag, so they accosted my stuff, I really didn't fight back, I felt less than a man when I fight back, it was very, late past towards their impression. I always expected around me to be something like where a guy comes up with a gun and loads it or something. But I didn't really have that much money, so that happens today. And I was starting to be very upset. And that was on Thursday. And then the next day of Friday was events occurred where you waiting outside the studio, but it'd be filming my sister's cloud that occurred. So that's what happened. And after, okay, now getting back to Friday, after the show was done filming, after we did the cross junior and missing her, I went back to the Union Station, made preparations to go back to Tucson. The day we went, I had no money for food, so I started, it's very dirty, I was like, I thought a place, it's like a taco bus, just sitting there, I was restaurant outside the store in Burbank. Anyway, so that's the only place I had stayed and slept, and also I was really dirty. Anyways, at the Union Station, I took the Charles Bus back to Tucson, and right there, I still broken, and I still was carrying that ill look, which is Rebecca Schaeffer, because I missed her again, I still watch the show on television, on CBS, and I adore her, even adore her watching the show. I feel very deep admiration for her. It's just like the most important thing in my life. I just couldn't let it go. And I really seem to sense so much. It's tormenting, but it really seems like somebody I can understand really being that big. The next time I decided to take my trip, again, was in September of 1987. I still working with the Jack and Box. I gained up some money, after reading the TV Guide interview where it's the only interview with her, says she's not as comfortable, so she got 2016. I read that article, and again, it simply described her place on the hills or something like that, gave more of a description. Again, it's not to see her, I call it deeper admiration for her because I don't know better look. There's something seemed like there was something special about her, but to the interview, she took her time answering questions, and she talked about world peace, which is something I mentioned earlier before I even knew she was interested. How she was interested in the university peace and supporting that. How she was interested in religion and spiritual things. We never, the Catholic Church, included the second race, and she's talking about going to a Catholic church in New York City one time, and how she had been a Calvinist site. She said, because somebody might get a Calvinist on her, she felt led to go under during stay in Europe. So that's very special about her. And at the end of the article, it's talking about where she lives in Hollywood Hills, and that she's into gardening and cooking or something like that. And she's dated some guys or something like that. And one guy was a typically a success or something like that. And it just made me look at it. I decided to try again to come to Vegas. And I took because I took the Charles bus again. And this time I said, look, when I arrived in LA, it was very early morning, and I went to the Government Studios Ranch again. Just for a short time, I didn't even talk to them. We just went around the building. It was early morning, so I left there. I started looking on the hills, and on Coenga Boulevard, I checked the Coenga apartments there. I guess that's also near the Hollywood Freeway, so I'm curious to call something about that. And then there's the Oakdale apartments overlooking Burbank Studios, and I thought she might be there. And I kept looking around, I couldn't find anything. So I gave up. I gave up again. Feeling disappointed again. So I took the Northwest Airlines to fly out of back to Tucson. And back to Tucson, I started my life again, working at Jack, about 2 miles there, 2 miles back every day. And I was very disappointed not being able to see her, and it became my main thing I could think about. I had very good thoughts about her. Then I also think very negative thoughts about her. I remember taking the Thanksgiving special 1987 on CBS, and when she's Schaeffer. She's an actor, Jill Bennett, Jacob family are both in Detroit. She's very smart and very pretty. She's wearing glasses. That was the first time I saw her wearing glasses. She's from, I guess, like home reading glasses or something like that. And she's very, very cute when she's floating around with the fish and cute. I just fell for it, and my obsession grew more and more. She's, I just couldn't let go. During all this time, I've been trying to find her. I was constantly writing her to go into studios or leading artists, which was first agents, I guess, in Los Angeles, or Beverly Hills, actually. And I kept trying to contact her, and there was no response. I couldn't understand that. I was figuring my lyrics were not just getting to her now. So I kept repeating the same thing over again, giving some new lyrics out of it, because I was aspiring to be a musician, more like Bruce Springsteen, because I was music, and I also, 87, I started 88. Beginning of 88, she did this routine. Cerebral palsy telephone. She was put in the cast of My Sister's Hand. I also take part of that. And that's, I believe, the show on hiatus or something like that. I think I should backtrack about 87. That I had written audiences are limited for tickets. My sister said they sent me green tickets that had a invited step on it, and it said my sister was wearing Count Albert and all the back of it had rules, about your names, and I told the person to come early and everything. And it was November 1987, and I had a date on there, and I had a ticket. I called the studio to see if I heard from the show, and they told me it was on hiatus because of the waiting or something to that effect. And so I didn't do it, but I always kept that ticket with me. And now in 1988, that was the time when I started to slowly forget about her. But I still carry some antagonism about her. And I remember in the summer, NBC, there was this TV movie that she did, science fiction TV movie that she did called Out of Time, and I videotaped that. And watching that, her hair was straight and wasn't curled, And I tried to contact her agents, find out what she'd be doing next. I keep writing her letters, find out she receives them. I take that now. And during all this time that I was obsessed with Rebecca, I listened to a lot of music, and I was very much a loner. I listened to a lot of music. I listened to U2, the Joshua Tree album, which was released by the same time I started my obsession with Rebecca. I listened to that. I listened also to a rock and roll band from Los Angeles called Guns N' Roses. Appetite for Destruction. I started listening to the music, I believe, that I related very much into what they were saying, the lyrics. Like for U2, I listened to Where the Streets Have No Name. It seemed like I could go on an odyssey someplace, And since that video was for that song filmed in downtown LA, it seemed like it was for the streets that know me, as far as I was concerned. And then I listened to I still have found a link for it says, come to eyes from, I've run through the hills only to be with you, only to be with you. I have run, I crawl, and still these cities walls, I fear nothing too tonight. These city walls only to be with you, but I still haven't found what I'm looking for. And I still haven't found what I was looking for with Rebecca. And that seems to mean a lot to me. And plus the song with or without you was a song about obsession, And I watched that video, and it looks like you can barely see a woman in that video or something like that. And look at the physical, plus it looks something like Rebecca, because the glimpse of it, there's a girl with curly hair her if you can see her real quick. And, she's calls Kim like Rebecca, and this is the music class seems to provide like a thing to my whole drama of trying to find her, And, it seemed to be the only friends I had, because I didn't really have any other friends out there, I was very much alone. I've never had a girlfriend, I've never had a sexual relationship with a girl, so I listen to music and attempt to, musicians and those rock groups, seem to be like my heroes in a sense, people I looked up to. I looked up to what they were saying. Luckily, in 1988, after taking all the time, I remember two things about the end of 1988. I called to some public library there's a child's house, and they said there's one million things, or that's in shape or something. I bought in the Charleston colleges. I've never had a sexual relationship with a girl, so I listen to music and attempt to, musicians and those rock groups, seem to be like my heroes in a sense, people I looked up to. I looked up to what they were saying. Luckily, in 1988, after taking all the time, I remember two things about the end of 1988. I called to some public library to find out, because I read in their interviews about the problem in Charleston colleges. I called the public library, looking at whether one was the public library in Oklahoma, looking there for a shaper if there's a Charleston college, and they said there was one million things, or Benson shaper or something like that. They gave me an address said Northwest Finders or something. They gave me the telephone number. So with that information, I was feeling that she told this man, this is her father, but I was confident because I figured he's a child psychology and I understand what's going to because I didn't really think it was inappropriate to talk to this guy before anything could happen. I figured, okay, probably let you know about this someone felt this way about his daughter. So I called his office, and our secretary answered, and I called twice, and both times the secretary said he wasn't in, And also, I remember also calling, I guess Rebecca started getting a new agency called a trial agency in Los Angeles as a new agency. So I started constantly calling in. They told me she was filming a new movie called Scenes from the College of Beverly Hills from August or September of 1988. And she's filming that in Beverly Hills. I was trying to find it out. I didn't know what movies was on. I kept on trying to find out what studios to film that. And I found out later on in Sync. So I went to Sync and I went to Rebecca Carrollton and I sent a letter there. I even called Sync just asking if she got the letter because I was always wondering. They said she did, but I was never sure. I never really trusted what they were saying because I never received a response. I figured if she got my letter, so she would respond. One of the reasons why I could find her was to find out she was receiving my letters because I wanted her to know who I was. It seemed so important to me, because I really, my goal was to start a sense of relationship with her because she seemed like a very accessible, formidable type woman, very innocent, very charming, and very pretty, about my age, There was something very special about her. I just couldn't let go of her. She became like the most important thing in my life. And I constantly would have to give that information about Scenes from the College of Beverly Hills and contact the Senate, it's kind of, it's just getting close to getting up, I keep trying to write and contact her, I kept trying to come some way. I was really desperate to try and find some way to find her, because I thought it deep admiration, because I really did feel that I cared for her. She was like someone that was, because she wasn't like a big, huge star like Julia Roberts or Madonna, you know. She was, you know, she seemed very successful when I wanted to reach her before she became really famous. And during all these times, if she wasn't answering, I'd get very frustrated, thinking that she was fake and phony. I was constantly believing that she saw out to Hollywood films and movies and become like a horror in the movies, become like a fuck piece, carrying movies and doing nothing more than being the sex object of like a bimbo or the male lead, And I kind of, I'm constantly kind of worried because they kind of betrayed the innocent image of her. And, I guess we need to believe that she was a very innocent, like a child of innocence. One of the songs I listened to, Guns N' Roses album, Epic Restrictions, a song called Sweet Child of Mine. And the lyrics seem to describe her innocence in that song. And that I seem to relate that to Rebecca, like she was a sweet child of mine. And, Rebecca seemed to be the innocence that I didn't have in my own child. She seemed, in one of the interviews in the Attention magazine, that she said she had a happy childhood. She always, there's something so very positive and glowing about her, and I just had to keep reaching out to her. But at the end of 1988, it's just seemed like I was trying to distract myself by listening to music, but like Debbie Gibbs and Tiffany, But Rebecca was the only one that I seemed to care about the most. I wasn't obsessed with Punk Rock or Radical. I wasn't obsessed. Really, the only person I really could truly think about was Rebecca Schaeffer, But if I could backtrack, was for 1988. If I backtrack into 1988, April 1988, where I went to New York City, I always invested in New York City. So I took United Airlines flight to New York City. And one of the things I wanted to do was hope to see David Gibson. I really had no intention of learning. I just figured it'd be, I like listening to music and all, but it wasn't like a big thing as like Rebecca, because Rebecca was more physically attracted to David Gibson, but I like listening to music. One race I took United Airlines flight to in April 1988 to New York City, cost me around $179 round trip. So I took the trip to New York City, and when I arrived at Kennedy Airport, I took a taxi driver to I remember the weather being very rainy and very cold, so I took the taxi driving to Long Island, to Merrick, Long Island, where I believe that's the biggest small town, And I, driving in town, I felt like a fool, being there, it's cold and everything, And so I was trying to find a hotel and everything in that area, I thought I'd put a chance that I might, look at us here, get a autograph or something, But I asked people around there where Calhoun High School was, because I was on Hollywood. So I went to Calhoun High School. It was very cold, and I seem to remember it was raining, and also I slept in a little area that's underneath the school, and I slept there, during the night, because I couldn't, the nearest hotel was a Holiday Inn, I guess in Freeport, on Long Island, New York. So I slept there during the night, and in the morning I took a taxi drive back to New York City. And when the first place I got off in New York City was the 72nd Street in Central Park West, where the Dakota is, where John Lennon's apartment was. I was a big fan of Beatles. I like listening to music, even though it wasn't my generation. I still like listening to music. Anyways, I visited that place. Look around there. I had with me, at that time, I had with me the Contextual, because I remember watching the film that special February, I guess it's February 1988, by Mark David Chapman. He always referred to the book notes. And I was wondering why he shot John Lennon, you know. I was looking around at the apartment, you know, and it seemed like just a regular apartment, you know. It's kind of dingy type area, you know. And then maybe kind of wish that John Lennon was there, you know. And then after leaving there, I kind of just walk around. Because Midtown Manhattan, I always seem to walk around. I also had with me a letter that it had the address also for David Gibson, because the post office box. And I had that with me. And I just, I remember going to the Catholic Church there, you know. I went there for a quick moment. It looked like I set up for homeless people or something. I think it was getting saved by homeless or something like that. There's a mailbox, a post office mailbox on the outside. I went there just the letter I had, I just put it in there. And I just started visiting works. I remember going to Rockefeller Center, skating there. You know, they attempted to skate there. It cost me $7 to purchase the skis and the ice skates. And I just tried skating there. That was one of the happiest times in my life, skating there in Rockefeller Center. I was having a ball there. I was very happy mood, you know. And it, that probably makes me alive for one person. I just want to, then after I fell down, I still walk around New York City. I think I walked from Park Avenue a little bit. It's just admiring the sights, you know. Because that's the first time actually the second time. Next to this time, it's a little bit more. And I saw Radio City was there. And I'd seen Times Square. It's during the daytime. I saw that. And then I guess I went to Madison Avenue, going back to the United Airlines.
What exactly is a Mickey Mouse haircut? Because Mickey is a mouse, he has fur that grows very short on his head. Goofy's almost done, I just gotta make him feet. I had trouble getting the ears even. He's so cute. What time is it?
So then I went there, purchased a thing, I decided to go home to Tucson, Arizona. And during that time, I was kind of, still thinking about Rebecca, I was kind of just like that it's a good use, but it really didn't just bother me like, not seeing, Rebecca Schaeffer, because I really tried to see David Gibson. Well, anyways, I was kind of happy because I thought I had a good time in New York City. So I purchased a plane ticket, and I also got a bus ticket to take me to LaGuardia Airport. Flew to Chicago, flew me in the United States, from over there, and flew me to Phoenix and then Tucson, Arizona. And that's April 1988, so that was that experience there. But I'd still like to listen to David Gibson's music and tapes and things, but it wasn't important for Rebecca, David Gibson was cute, she had a cute voice, and I like this one. I get it on Rebecca. Rebecca was the thing that the person I think that cared most about, and that was my original goal, and not always be was Rebecca Schaeffer. No one else, no other actress, nobody, just Rebecca Schaeffer. And now right then, going back to that event, started at 89. I still listen to the music, and YouTube, and I was in a way kind of forgetting about Rebecca Schaeffer. I listened to music from Tiffany, because I listened to other people. But I wasn't really, it's decent music, but it's just a female voice to listen to. I'm just kind of curious. So in April of 1989, I went to a Tiffany concert in the Celebrity Theater of Phoenix. I had a front row seat. She had performed there. And she saw me, so I texted her to sing. She was singing the cover of the Beatles. I saw her standing there, and on her I saw him standing. She pointed out and said, "He was just 17." She pointed me out, and I'm like, "I was 17." But I didn't know listen to Jessica. She had security around there, from Celebrity Theater. But I reached out to her hand. We could purchase roses there, and I purchased a Tiffany t-shirt. And I wore that, and I gave her the rose. I wanted to give her the rose. And I was just telling her, one time she just gave up members of the audience. She's very receptive to us. She constantly reach out to her, even though she had much big, strong spirit, but she would still try to reach out to them. So I gave her a hug, I was very happy. I thought she was a nice person, but I wasn't upset. So I just had a big family that comes. It's just a good time. I went to Phoenix all by myself to see it. And it was very, it was another happy time in my life, isn't that? After the concert was over, I went to the dance and I was just happy. Took the, I guess it was the trophy, the green all those back this time. I was very happy when I saw my family that I met Tiffany, It's just a very happy experience, So I didn't figure I'd become some type of starstruck with that club students after being married, And also, I remember in '89, the University of Arizona Wildcat basketball team was very popular. They were watching my TV a lot. And I remember meeting members of that team at the Tucson International Open Court after they lost to UNLV at the return to college basketball teams to the Final Four. And so doing that, I remember meeting some of the members there. They're a little popular in Tucson. They're all in the United States because they're very high AP people in the USA today in basketball. And I got to meet them. I shook their hands and so those were celebrities as far as like sports celebrities. But they're always on the TV, always on TV. So I felt good about that. So I didn't think about that. So after I'd done meeting with them, I guess in 1989, I remember me and my brother and his friends got some tickets to a movie called Real House of Hyperspace. We went to the Cineplex Theater and seen that in Tucson. I remember my brother getting this movie magazine, free movie magazine that they gave out there. I looked at it and I was just looking at it. We mentioned something about a movie called Scenes from the Couch from Beverly Hills. And showed Rebecca at a table with Jack and said, Paul Bardo was the director of that movie. And it's kind of like a sex comedy. It kind of upset me, because that was the type of movie that I didn't think she just turned into being, And I was very selfish about that, very immature about that, because, I guess, she should have her own choice and what she should do, but I was too still thinking about her innocent Patty Russell in it, After seeing the Royal House, I grabbed a whole bunch of those the few magazines and just had a picture article and I remember when I started working at Jack House, I remember looking at the People magazines and I guess it was May 25th or 29th, 1989 edition of People magazines. They were talking about Teresa Saldana's trying to prevent guy off of Jack getting out of prison so they could attack her again. I hadn't heard any of that case before, I just read the article about Jackson. It's talking about lying, about his problems, It's talking about murders that he and hobbies that he had in England, and how I came to be obsessed with Teresa Saldana. And I followed the part how we found her, and one of the things I noticed was I could investigate her. So exactly what I was finding, time that could be done, you know? So as soon as I put that message back, I hit Paul, right? As soon as I get to a point where the Tucson telephone look right, and I can see this thing happening agency, and it says, missing person, right? So I called the agency, they find a girl in California, right? I said, come on over, we'll see what we can do. And the guy there, I guess I was speaking to Anthony Zinkis, or one of his investigators, and so on. I think we call it June 1st, 1989. I arrived at his office in Tucson, Arizona. And I told him that I was looking for a girl, an actress in Burbank Studios. He mistakenly said Universal, but it's the Burbank Studios I mentioned to him. And I told him her name and her birthday, and I said that it was possible, very possible to find her. He said, ask me questions like that. I know her. I said, yeah. He asked me my purpose, and I said, to give her a kid, you know. And, at that time I still wasn't, I still had some sense of animosity, but I still was, it's like waiting to see if I could see her, and he came in very hopeful sense that he could find her. He told me $100 was down payment, and he took me on Robert's office, and he had a bunch of phone books from all across the United States, and he had to climb right. And looking at that, he thought, that Rebecca Schaeffer has mentioned that his business, and also Rebecca Schaeffer without me, I guess I had to talk to him, I guess I was home, but I didn't know that Rebecca Schaeffer was talking. And he started looking at and I tried to leave the office, I decided to sell a seat compact disc that I tried with the Chinese called music I listened to. I sold those I guess a place called albums. It's a place where I sold for my CDs, they gave me a so online for it. It wasn't that very good price for it, but it was good enough for me to get $100 off paying this guy yesterday, because it's not a lot of money, I was good at jacket. Anyways, $100 was Saturday, So I think June 1st was a Friday, June 2nd was a Saturday, and I called, I found out that I didn't think this, I went to his home there in Tucson, and I went to his home, it's across from the on Keystone Sheridan Hotel in North Tucson. That was in a nice neighborhood. And when I arrived at his house, I drove down by myself with the clippings and all that I had in a red trapper notebook, 2 bucks. And I went into his house. As soon as I knew if I was in the door, when he saw that I found it, he was remarking on that side of his drinks that I found, because he said most people who came to his house could not find the front door. I said he had it closed right. He took me to his house and we looked at all the doors. It's just me and him. Nobody else was around. I guess it was his library or something, I don't know. But he looked at the TV guy, he go check the back door, and he looked at the screen. He always constantly asking about this film, of her last name, because he said it's about Schaeffer. And, he's told me something where he said he could find her. And I gave him $100 and he said, I just hired him. I had no idea about the DMV or anything. And I think he mentioned something about our driver's license or something, but I really didn't pay attention to that. He mentioned some other things. I guess various methods, I can't remember the company. He said that it was very possible. Something along the lines of bank records, that whether she's renting a place or purchasing a home or something like that. Something to that effect. So during that time, I go back to work, and I would go back to work during that week. I keep on checking on the progress of the client. And later on that week, he had told me he had found a place on Sunset Plaza Drive. And he said he's still checking to it. He said he called one of the neighbors in there. And one of the guys said, yes, there was a pretty girl that used to live there, but he hadn't seen her lately. And he said he'd still check it out. And I remember on Monday, the next Monday morning, I just think I just got on for Jack Box Keaton, and he I called up his son and says, your timing is perfect. I just got something in the mail that you'd be very interested in. I said I had it done, the $150 more. So that makes $50 for a payment. And when I read that his office, he said he got something in the mail. And it's the DMV thing. I said, Rex, Lucille, she had a birthday. I had her drive the record, the tickets, and whatever she got. And that showed Sunset House right, and then it said a place called 120 North Sweetser, They showed me on the map. You pull out half of the lake that he had and showed me where it was. But yeah, I remember it's near CVS Farmers Market. And he had a piece of paper that was all written down because he couldn't sell me the DMV. He said he couldn't do that. And I said Rebecca Schaeffer, 120 North Sweetser Avenue, Los Angeles, California, 90048, apartment number 4. I had it with me. And I remember him closing the Venetian blinds and closing his office door. I tossed over the envelope and they tossed over the paper. That was it. And that's still June, right? I still working at Jack Box. I was constantly thinking about the driver who said she had to go to her parents' talking about that couldn't be here because she wouldn't have. Saying that should be a very responsible person. I think the person who was tired of her card would get arrested. I couldn't arrest her. It happened to her. And it also seems from the class struggle was starting to come on in theaters. We don't all the critics reviews and all. I remember contacting Mike Clark of USA Today, so a movie critic, and I called him up and I talked with him asking about Rebecca's role. He told me that she had very clean on that, but I still wanted to see the movie. Mike Clark of USA Today is he's very courteous to me, He told me he said he didn't care the movie, but some people liked it. I told him I knew the person in the movie, but then he told me a little bit about it. And so I seem to remember during that time my sister was going to Tennessee with her husband and her daughter because her husband's an electrical engineer and he's going to get his work for his marathon or something like that. And I remember feeling frustrated about that. Since from the festival in Beverly Hills, I remember my bed when I was tied to my sister, which is the one that she damages where I was home plus one I mentioned on the privacy. I also wrote to my sister Jen. And also it's written some other things, like I'm gonna kill you, Rebecca Schaeffer, and after Rebecca Schaeffer's gonna kill you, repeating, And this is stuff that I kept to myself, except the letters I was gonna give to my sisters, And I remember American when she wanted something, I showed her a postcard with Rebecca. I said, because she got my niece and she said, what are you doing? I showed her, I said, I'm gonna put this girl to sleep, I just, I didn't seem to realize what I was doing as such a small child, I said, this is Rebecca, I'm gonna put you to sleep, and then I went back to writing, because preoccupied with that. My sister's preparing to take her to the airport and gave her the letter. And I told her about it on the airplane. What did she get? And I told her about that I was someone about the obsession of. I mentioned the song Exit in detail. That's one of the songs that I had mostly towards better than I listened to. And I put it part as 1967 to 1989. I still wondering if I would still ever see that because I'm still frustrated. I still. And I still wasn't sure, because I felt 3 times before. And anyways, I think Six on Contextual was playing at the Crossroads Theater in Tucson, Arizona, which was sitting Arizona Theater. I saw the movie. I think that was June.
Have the noon recess till 1:30, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. we are done with Bardo for today and the week. Thank you guys for joining me again this morning. Now we are going to go watch closing arguments in the Brian Walsh trial. So if you are not going over there with me, if you just came by to watch Bardo, thank you very much. Replay crew, I love you guys. Don't forget to like the video. I will see you guys next week at 8 o'clock for more Bardo. Now we're going to Brian Walsh. If you are going over there with us, it should redirect for everybody but Marty, because I don't let his redirect because it annoys him. So I'll see you over there in a few minutes, guys.